Thank you for doing this. Whenever I interview people, I ask the interview because I'm fascinated with them. And then when the interview comes, I do an extra deep dive. And it's just great. I love Bashar's demeanor. How should I,
He, he,
he, he's so direct and
yeah,
sarcastic and funny.
yes.
It's the best.
He's very blunt. Yes,
Well, I think that that's what people need. I think sometimes people need to be shaken a little like that.
I think so too. And it, doesn't beat around the bush. He gets right to the point. So why waste the time?
My favorite is when people are asking questions and Bashar says, "No, that's it. You're done."
Yeah, he knows because he also takes into account when other people are listening. It's like, that's not appropriate for the crowd, or, we'll talk about it later if it's private or something like that.
So, how old were you when you started to channel Bashar?
I've been channeling for 40 years. So 31,
You've been channeling for how long?
40 years.
40 years. Yes. Wow. Was that so weird when it happened?
Oh, incredibly. I mean, I didn't really know exactly. I mean, I was in a channeling class, but I didn't think I was going to become a channel. I just was kind of researching how something like that could be taught. So, yeah, when it happened to me at first, I just thought, I know I'm hallucinating, or this is a side effect of the meditation that we're doing or something like that. But the channel who was teaching the class, the entity coming through that channel, as soon as this was happening in my mind, I hadn't said anything to anybody, turned right to me at that instant and said, "Hey, there's an entity here for you now, if you're ready to begin." And I happened to glance behind me, and one of the other class members had somehow picked up on the image of Bashar I saw in my head, and she was sketching it on a piece of paper. So I had two outside validations that it wasn't just my imagination. There was something real going on. And so I decided, okay, let's see where this goes. And I kept practicing, and here I am 40 years later.
Maybe you could try to explain to people how the difference between your, let's say, imagination and or your creativity or your past experiences versus Bashar or versus being the clear channel for an energy or an entity.
Well, it comes with a distinctly different feeling than my own imagination. There is an absolute sense of personality. In the same way, I know this sounds weird, but in the same way, I can tell you're a different person than I am. It's that
Right.
sense of solidity and just reality to that other being. I don't know how else to kind of explain it.
Mhm.
It's a little difficult, but when you start doing something like that, because I did also at the beginning learn that my own higher mind can come through as well. So I got a real
Oh.
strong lesson in, okay, it feels like this, my higher mind feels like that, he feels like that, and I can tell the difference. There's a feeling that comes with it. There's a flavor, so to speak, to his
Hmm.
energy that has nothing to do with my own higher mind. So there's a distinct difference in the sensation that comes through, although it's a little hard to describe.
No, I mean, I understand that makes sense. And there's like you said, probably like a personality to them. Like almost the way that the information lands has a certain tone or personality to it, probably.
Right. And it comes with a depth of a life, in other words, there's memory there that's not my memories. There's experience there that's not my experience.
Yeah.
So it comes fully blown because it's a telepathic connection. So I'm really picking up on how he feels, how he thinks of things, what his experiences are like, and they have nothing to do with my life. I can't prove that he's real. It could be another aspect of my own consciousness in some other dimension. I don't know. But it comes with its own autonomy. It comes with its own life, its own
Mhm.
history, its own memories. So it's a fully blown personality, whatever it is. I just
Mhm.
have to let it come through the way it comes through in order for it to work. So we just say, here he is. This is an ET entity. Take it for what it's worth.
Is there a big difference between the kind of information that you get from your higher self versus Bashar?
Not so much anymore after 40 years. He's rubbed off on me a lot. I understand his principles to the point where I can teach them, and I have taught them as myself, and I'm going to probably start doing that again next year. I'll teach like a course because, in the course of any event that we do, it's like, 1 or 2 hours long. People can't dive too deeply into the concepts, no matter how many times he explains them. So what I do is I'm going to be teaching like a 10-week course just on his metaphysical concepts, because then that gives people a chance to really ask a lot of deep questions, really understand the concepts through application, and make it their own. So I'm looking forward to doing that. I really enjoy teaching his concepts.
You're saying Bashar can only come through for so long, or the people listening can only receive that information for so long before they need it broken down and more touch point and questions?
That's true too, but I'm just saying the events that are arranged by Bashar
Yeah.
Communications usually only last 90 minutes to 2 hours. So, and everyone's asking different questions. So there's no way to really focus on the main principles that he's talking about in a typical event, which only lasts a couple of hours. I did that early on. All my questions have pretty much been answered. If somebody comes up with something new and he delivers information on that, then they'll usually tell me afterwards, or I'll listen to the recording or something. But my own questions, I don't really have too many anymore.
I want to know what those questions were.
Well, and it's just some of them were specific in terms of like, I wanted to understand, how do your spacecraft function? And in literally a split second, I got a download that took me 3 hours to write out. So he explained the principle by which they travel from star to star and all of that. And there's other questions just about my own life and how do these things work. But, he's delivered a very concise instruction manual, so to speak, for how we create our reality experience. And in applying that in my life on a daily basis to the best I can, that really addresses just about anything I would ask. So I just have sort of run out of life questions.
I feel like in the end, whenever you ask these big existential questions, the answer is usually fairly simple.
Yeah. And he gives those simple answers. And so, in knowing what those answers are over 40 years, because of all the questions that other people have asked,
Sure.
answered a lot of my questions too.
Sure. Before we get to those core fundamentals for creating the life that you want and leading you down that path of growth and evolution, and I would definitely like to know about the one that you just mentioned about asking about how the spacecraft work. And maybe we could take a minute and talk about just everything that's been going on with extraterrestrial activity, with, the government admitting to having crafts that are unidentified in the sky, these kinds of things. So what was it? What is the technology that they use to travel?
For slower than light, they definitely manipulate electromagnetic and gravitic fields. But when they want to go from star to star, okay, let's see if I explain this. They consider an object not to exist in a location. They consider location to be part of the object. In other words, objects are made out of energy patterns. One of the patterns in an object is its location in space-time. So if you consider that to be like an equation or a variable in an equation, they're basically saying if you map out the equation of all the locations from whatever your 0 point is, you create this map, then you somehow isolate your ship with a force field of some sort, and you impose on it the vibrational frequency of a location that's distant.
Okay.
And overwhelm the material of the ship with that vibration of another location other than where it is. The object has to stop existing at one location and literally instantly start existing at another location. So it has moved, so to speak, to another location without actually traveling in between. and then it reinserts itself into our reality at that location. It's a really
Okay.
strange concept. But
Okay.
he's saying we can actually experiment with that, and he's actually described an experiment we can do to learn that principle. So it's an interesting idea that everything is about resonance, everything is about frequency, including the way they travel.
Is the field that it creates for the ship encompassing of whatever's inside of it? Are there actual beings, biological on some level beings, or are they just energy? And I guess I'm playing with the words a little bit because I'm curious about just, we want so much to be able to travel all over the universe, bilocate, or all kinds of different things. But what's the difference between you and going to sleep and having your experience while you sleep and going to different places? Your physical body's here, but your consciousness is somewhere else. So is it energetic or is it truly biological?
It's truly biological.
Whoa.
So, yeah, I mean, astral travel is a different kind of a thing. Out of body
Mhm.
experiences are a different kind of thing, but it sort of is the physical version of that. So, yeah, it includes anything within the field, including everything in the ship. And it sort of takes its own, it moves its own reality or a part of its reality from one spot to another. Because again, they're saying physical reality is a projection of consciousness anyway. It's an illusion. So it really
We
is,
are the illusion here.
yeah, it really is a matter of just picking the right frequency that represents a different time and space.